Sounds like we're finally getting some answers about how Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ sequel plans to de-age Jesus. Plus, it's not going to be a walk in the park. Passion of the Christ 2 is set to show hell and the fall of the angels. We've also got some details on Mel Gibson's filming strategy and who he's eyeing to play Jesus. So, let's jump into everything we know about the sequel. Jim Caviezel is stepping back into the role that pretty much defined his career, and according to him, it's not just about acting this time. He actually describes it as something closer to spiritual warfare. Even though it's been over 20 years since The Passion of the Christ first shocked audiences and became one of the highest-grossing R-rated movies ever made, Mel Gibson isn't done telling the story. He's getting behind the camera once again for the long-awaited sequel. Titled The Resurrection of the Christ, production is finally locked in to start this August in Rome, and if everything stays on track, we might see it hit theaters sometime in 2026. And yes, Jim Caviezel will once again take on the role of Jesus, but this time with a little help from modern technology, because even great actors can't turn back the clock naturally. Caviezel actually joked about the whole thing when talking to Gibson. He said, "You want me to be Jesus again, don't you?" And as soon as the idea was floated, he was all in. The only catch is, Caviezel is now 56, and Jesus was 33 at the time of the resurrection. So to make it work, Gibson and his team are planning to digitally de-age him, using the same kind of tech we saw in The Irishman, although hopefully without any weird moments where a young-looking face is attached to someone moving like an 80-year-old. Gibson even talked about this challenge on Joe Rogan's podcast last year, explaining that the story picks up just 3 days after the crucifixion. That tight timeline between movies brings some unique problems, but Gibson seems confident he can figure it out. It might sound strange to think about a sequel to The Passion of the Christ like it's a regular franchise, but that's basically what's happening. The movie picks up immediately after Jesus' crucifixion, right where the first film left off. But don't expect a straightforward resurrection story. Gibson's teased that the movie is going to be way more intense and imaginative than people might be expecting. He's even compared it to an acid trip, diving deep into spiritual realms, Christ's descent into Hades, the harrowing of hell, and battles with fallen angels. It honestly sounds a lot more like a heavy metal concept album than a traditional religious film. And Caviezel isn't just acting again for this one. He says the process feels like going to war. In his own words, "I'm not acting as Jesus, I'm asking him to work through me." Alongside Caviezel, a bunch of familiar faces are coming back too. Maia Morgenstern is returning as Mary, and Francesco DeVito is back as Peter. Gibson himself will be directing, and he's co-writing the screenplay with his brother Donald Gibson and his old Braveheart collaborator Randall Wallace, so it's pretty much a family affair at this point. Production is officially set to kick off in Rome later in 2025, and even though 2026 is the planned release window, delays could always pop up because, well, it's a pretty massive project. On top of all that, Gibson recently opened up about the project while chatting with Joe Rogan. He gave us a glimpse into just how ambitious this movie really is. For starters, he revealed that The Passion of the Christ 2 will cover everything from the fall of the angels all the way to the death of the last apostle. So we're talking about a timeline that stretches way beyond the resurrection itself. He explained that the film will dive into Sheol, the realm of the dead, and hell, showing audiences worlds we didn't really explore in the first movie. And while it sounds epic, Gibson was honest about how tough it's going to be. He said it's not going to be easy, admitting that pulling it off the right way is going to take a ton of planning, and even then, he's not 100% sure he can nail it. But Gibson's the kind of guy who loves a challenge, so he's diving in head first. Gibson also confirmed the official title will be The Resurrection of the Christ, and even though Caviezel is involved right now, Gibson hinted that they might end up casting a younger actor to play Jesus, mainly because of how challenging it will be to de-age Caviezel convincingly for an entire movie. It's not just about the visuals either, it's about finding someone who can tap into the emotional weight of the story without feeling cheesy or over the top. Looking at everything Gibson shared so far, it's pretty clear this might be the most ambitious project of his career. The Passion of the Christ was already groundbreaking when it came out, praised for its brutal, unflinching portrayal of Jesus' death and its commitment to authenticity, like using Aramaic dialogue. But it also sparked a lot of controversy for its graphic violence and allegations of anti-Semitism, which people still debate to this day. Since then, Gibson's built up a pretty solid track record as a filmmaker. He directed Apocalypto in 2006, then came back strong with Hacksaw Ridge in 2016, which earned him another round of critical acclaim. And let's not forget his earlier hits like The Man Without a Face and Braveheart. So it's safe to say he knows how to put together a big, emotionally charged story when he wants to. But this time, Gibson's reaching even further. He's pulling together all kinds of threads from the Bible and beyond, aiming to craft a story about resurrection that feels both grounded and cosmic at the same time. It's a huge swing, and while there's no guarantee it'll work, you have to respect the ambition. That being said, there's still a chance the movie might not meet its target release date. After all, The Passion of the Christ 2 has been in development for almost a decade now, and there have been more than a few false starts along the way. So even though the current plan is to start shooting in 2025 and release in 2026, it wouldn't be shocking if things slid into 2027 or even 2028. Honestly, focusing on the resurrection and the aftermath of Jesus' death is probably the smartest move Gibson could make for the sequel. It gives him a lot of material to work with, from emotional reactions of Jesus' followers to surreal supernatural events like the fall of the angels. And although we still don't know exactly who's playing Jesus if Caviezel doesn't end up being the final pick, it sounds like the team has a clear sense of where they want to take the story. That's a big deal, because for a long time, details about the sequel were so vague it felt like it might never actually happen. Recently, Cinecita Studio CEO Manuela Cacciamani dropped another exciting update. She revealed that Gibson's sequel is scheduled to start filming in Italy in August 2025, which is actually a little sooner than Gibson's own 2026 projection he mentioned earlier this year. Although there's still a long way to go and a few big questions still need answering, like who will ultimately play Jesus, the pieces are finally coming together. So even though the sequel's been teased for years and we've had our hopes dashed before, this time it actually feels like it's happening. And if Mel Gibson can pull it off the way he's describing, it might not just match the impact of the first movie, it could end up being even bigger. And that's all we have to say about The Passion of the Christ 2. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.